Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a super crucial, but honestly often overlooked part of your computer, accessibility. We're going to explore how Linux desktop environments are specifically designed to be usable by pretty much everyone right out of the box.
It really all starts with this one fundamental question. Technology is just a massive part of our lives now, right? But if it's not designed inclusively, it can totally leave people behind. So the real challenge is, how do we make sure our digital tools are, well, truly universal? All right, here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with the basics of what digital accessibility even is. Then, we'll dive into the cool tools for visual and physical needs, check out some advanced inputs, see it all in action, and wrap up with why this stuff matters for every single one of us. Okay, so let's jump right into our first section. What do we actually mean when we say accessibility? And this right here is the core idea. Accessibility isn't some add-on or an afterthought. It's about designing from the very beginning to accommodate all potential users. It doesn't matter if someone has a vision impairment, has a tough time with a mouse, or has limited finger movement. The whole point is to provide access for everyone. So, with that foundation laid, let's start by looking at some of the most common and, frankly, most powerful tools designed specifically for users with visual impairments. Okay, check this out. This shows you the immediate impact of just one simple change. On one side, you've got a standard theme. On the other, a high contrast theme. I mean, look how much clearer the text and icons become. For someone with low vision, this single setting can be the difference between a frustrating experience and a computer that's completely usable. And the great thing is, most modern desktop environments, like GNOME, which we're looking at here, they group all these tools into one easy-to-find spot. You'll usually see it called Universal Access, or Accessibility, or maybe Assistive Technologies. It's basically the central hub for tweaking the whole user experience. But it goes way beyond just high contrast, There's a whole suite of other tools. You've got screen readers that actually speak everything on the screen. There are braille displays that give a physical, touchable output. Screen magnifiers let you zoom way in. And honestly, even small tweaks like just making the text or the cursor bigger can be an absolute game changer. So let's dig into screen readers for a sec. This software is just essential for so many blind or visually impaired users. It literally scans the entire interface. We're talking buttons, menus, all the text, and reads it all aloud. This makes it possible to navigate the whole computer without ever needing to see the screen. And in the Linux world, a really popular one is called Orca. Now, what's really powerful here is that this support goes all the way to specialized hardware. Linux can hook up with what are called refreshable braille displays using software like BRLTTY. And BRLTT is basically a little background program, a daemon as it's often called, that translates the text on the screen into braille characters that a user can actually read with their fingertips. It's amazing stuff. All right, next up, let's switch gears and look at features for users who face challenges not with their vision, but with physical interaction. Things like using a keyboard or a mouse. The on-screen keyboard is a perfect example of this. For anyone who physically can't use a standard keyboard, this gives them a software version right on the screen. And you can control it with a mouse, a trackball, a joystick, really any kind of pointing device. It makes sure that typing is still totally possible. Okay, but what about those complex keyboard shortcuts? Trying to hold down 2 or 3 keys at the same time can be really difficult or even impossible for some people. And that's exactly where sticky keys comes in. It brilliantly turns a simultaneous key press into a sequential one. You just press Control, let go, press Alt, let go, then press Delete. The computer acts like you held them all down at once. It is a total game changer. And what's really great is just how much you can fine-tune everything. For instance, slow keys helps prevent accidental presses by making you hold a key down for just a split second before it registers. Then there's bounce keys, which is perfect for someone who might have tremors because it ignores quick, repeated taps of the same key. And of course, repeat keys just lets you control how fast a character repeats when you hold a key down. And if using a mouse is the issue, well, you can just ditch it entirely. There's a feature called mouse keys that lets you control the cursor with amazing precision just by using the numeric keypad on your keyboard. You can move the pointer, you can click, all without ever having to touch a physical mouse. But of course, accessibility doesn't stop with just tweaking the keyboard and mouse. I mean, technology is always moving forward, and so are the ways we can interact with our computers. The two really big areas here are gestures and voice. Think about it. Gestures on a touchpad or a touchscreen can turn a complex command into a simple swipe. And voice recognition, it's getting unbelievably powerful.
We're talking about controlling your entire system, launching apps, and dictating text, all completely hands-free.
Okay, so we've looked at a lot of individual tools, but let's see how these technologies actually come together in a couple of real-life scenarios to really make a difference. So for our first scenario, picture a user with motor difficulties who needs to write a document. They can use the on-screen keyboard to type out all their sentences. Then when they need to use a shortcut like Control-S to save, they just use sticky keys to press each key one by one. By combining these two tools, they can get their work done efficiently and, most importantly, without frustration. Okay, for our second scenario, let's think about a visually impaired user who's browsing the web. They can use the Orca screen reader to hear all the headlines and the text in an article. But then, when they get to an image they want to see, they can use the zoom or screen magnifier feature to blow up just that part of the screen to get a much better look. See? Multiple technologies are working together here to create a complete, accessible experience.
Okay, so we've seen the tools and we've seen them in action. But what's the big takeaway here? Why does all of this matter so much?
You know, this quote from the source material really just says it all. The whole point. The fundamental goal is to make sure our digital world doesn't have any locked doors. Technology is supposed to be an enabler for everyone, not a barrier. And this brings us to what might be the single most important point. Inclusive design is just, well, it's just good design. Seriously, features that are built for accessibility often end up helping everyone. Think about it. Subtitles on a video are essential for deaf users, right? But they're also amazing if you're watching something in a loud room. A well-designed, accessible system is almost always a better, more user-friendly system for everybody. So, knowing about these tools is the first step. It doesn't matter if you're a system admin setting up a computer, a developer building an app, or just a regular user helping out a friend. Understanding this stuff empowers you to be an advocate for inclusivity. The tools are already there. It's really on all of us to use them to help build a digital world that truly works for everyone.